Our next travel day series is to Prague, Praha, one of my favorite cities in the world that I've visited. I'm going to be working just in my journal. I'm doing a quick sketch and pencil. Now I'm going to come in with my Micron pens. You will see me use these quite a bit, especially on the go while I'm traveling. They're fantastic. They come in a variety of sizes. You can buy a pack of them or buy them individually. And the beauty of them is you can come over them with watercolor and, they're permanent. They won't move. So you get a lot of fine details. You can get really, kind of a little bit chunkier or brush-like with your different pens. So a great tool on the go. Prague is just one of those kind of magical cities. It's no wonder a lot of fairy tales came out of it with these kind of Gothic buildings and, this exuberance of Baroque throughout the city and the architecture. There's a lot of amazing things. So I'm going to be focusing here on the kind of iconic area, which would be Charles Bridge. Charles Bridge is an area that if you visit where there's tons of music, it connects it right to the central part of the city. It's where there's artists are painting right there on the streets. At nighttime, it's just this beautiful glow that goes right over the river. Prague, several thousand years ago, was the connection. There was a lot of trade routes because of the river, and it connected Southern and Northern Europe. So a lot of people had passed through this area. I love knowing a little pieces of history there because it has an influence on the culture today. But this beautiful medieval stone and these arch bridges crosses the Vltava River, which is a way that connects the bridge from the castle all the way over to Old Town area. So you've got Prague Castle, connecting all the way to Old Town, where you can see the astronomical clock that performs on the hour in the middle of the center. So with this drawing, I am being really loose. I'm just kind of mimicking the shapes that I see. I'm not coming out with a ruler. I am paying attention to the perspective. So, the front line here is kind of where I'm basing my whole angle off of. And as it goes towards the back on the left, you see that shaded area. That's, it's going to get a little bit more narrow. And then the face of it is just kind of turned towards the bridge. So start looking at not only the angles, but start breaking it down into shapes. I think if you break architecture into shapes, it's a lot easier to draw. And you can see here I have a really fluid movement with my hand. And this allows me to be really free and a little bit sketchy, and it's that like these arches aren't perfect, and that's okay. I just keep coming over it with my pen and just kind of create a little bit of expression. If I came in with a ruler and I made it's so precise, it's going to look more like a photograph as opposed to a drawing. I want it to have kind of my own line work come in. So I'm keeping that movement really loose. It's kind of like doing a contour drawing of someone's face. I'm basically doing the same thing, but a contour drawing of the architecture. And I love doing this because this is exactly what I'd be doing on the go. I'm not going to go sit out there with a ruler and draw precisely. I'm going to be doing really quick sketches. So if you don't feel comfortable doing it in pen quite yet, you can keep practicing with your pencil over and over again. Now, in this video, I wanted to use pen just because it's easier for the viewer, for you to see here if I use pen with the darker line. And then I kind of want to come in, there's tons of people on the bridge. So instead of drawing them out individually, I'm kind of coming in and just creating their silhouettes on the bridge, because the bridge is always packed. So coming in and just mimicking here. And then come in with different sizes with your pens. So, maybe you want some thinner lines to kind of create some value and shadowing, or you want a big chunky marker you could even come in with and create some bold lines as well. I opted for a thinner pen here because I'm working on the background. I want the foreground, meaning the bridge, to stand out a little bit more than these buildings here in the background. So I'm making them just a little bit lighter. And you can do that with painting as well, where you make the foreground more vibrant, more saturated, and then you create your background buildings with more of a wash to kind of push them back, which allows the viewer to focus on one area and the thing that you want in the foreground the most. When I'm traveling, I'll take a little bit of notes. So you can see I wrote a little bit on the top corner. And then I'm coming in with my watercolors. I have like a watercolor swatch here, which is every color that's in my ocean paper palette. And then I'm starting to come in and pick some colors that are kind of iconic to Prague. These, orangish red rooftops. Then I see it kind of offset with this kind of sea green color or sea mist color, and starting to kind of just bring in some colors from my watercolor palette that really speak to me for Prague, and then maybe adding in a few like this hot pink that you don't really see, but I think would look really nice and lend itself well with that kind of muted greenish blue color, ocean blue, and then with this bright red color. So play around with your palette, lay out photographs. You can go to my Unsplash page, print those images, and kind of pick out the colors that start coming out a lot, and then make it your own. I always say, unless you want it to be really realistic and really match the building, every city has this feeling and this colors that, especially if you visited, that you can bring in your own palette. Maybe you were wearing a green dress on your travels. You could bring that in, but make the palette your own, depending on your style and what you're drawn to. I am typically drawn to vibrant kind of jewel tones, and then offset with some really natural earth kind of tones. So that's kind of my palette generally. So you're going to see me come in with some bold jewel tones, and then offset them here with kind of these burnt siennas and raw siennas that you really find in those buildings and even on the ground and environment that surround the areas. Prague was such a spectacular trip for me. I was so fortunate that I was traveling with one of my good friends, and her family was from Prague. And so we got, the locals tour. One of their good friends was an architect in Prague. So we travel around with him for a day, and he would tell us all about the history and the architecture and the art. And, it was just an absolute dream to travel with someone that knew the city so well. And also, we traveled with her cousin who was studying there at the time. So they knew Czech, which is a very difficult language to pick up on. But it was just one of those magical trips, and certainly a place I would encourage you to visit. You can visit the Strahov Montessori, Charles Bridge, of course, Prague Castle. You can do the 299 steps at Petrin Hill. which, looks like a mini Eiffel Tower. And the park surrounding Petrin Hill is just absolutely incredible and overlooks the river. And these rooftops are just absolutely spectacular. So anytime you can get a rooftop view in Prague, I would encourage you to do so. So I'm coming in with just a wash to start with my watercolors right over the pen. If you're new to watercolors, you generally want to apply layers of light tones, diluted paint with water, and then build them with more and more layers, so light to dark. Unlike acrylics, you could go from dark to light. In general, you kind of just want to build the layers on top of each other when you're working with watercolors. If you go way too saturated, you can blot it while it's still wet, or you can re-wet it and then blot it as well. So, don't feel that if you came in way too saturated that you can't remove it. But that is kind of how you work with watercolors, especially if you're new to it. And then obviously, if you've done it for a while, there's other amazing techniques that you can do with your watercolors. But just add the amount of water that you think you need. You can use an extra palette or plate to work on to kind of dilute that. Or for me, I just directly work here from my colors, and then I dilute it onto the paper. These little sketches and these quick lessons are a great way to just experiment with finding your style, experiment with new mediums and with new color palettes. I could do this exact same drawing. I could do this exact same lesson and use a completely different color palette and it would look totally different. Or I could use a different medium. So I could do this same lesson in acrylic. So I'd encourage you to, after this lesson, maybe you try it in a different medium. Maybe you try it in oils and acrylics and see how that feels, or you strictly use drawing. So play around. My goal through these travel day series is to give you kind of small, quick prompts that just kind of inspire your weekly art practice. I want you to just explore the world with me through different mediums and through different subject matters. Now that I have some color into my drawing, I'm just going to come in with a little bit more saturated color, coming in and building up some more of these shadows, especially underneath the bridge. You can see in these window areas, there's a little bit of vegetation here on the left, a tree popping out by the bridge. So just starting to kind of build these layers and bring out the foreground and the background a little bit more. I'm using for my darkest color this kind of dark green color. You could go more towards a blue or even, a dark gray as well. But I love how this dark green is a complementary color to this really kind of beautiful reds that you see a lot in the rooftops. So, keep a little paper towel close, keep a cloth close to kind of blot it if you need. But, just start building those layers from light to dark. You can wait for it to dry and then add layers on top, which will give you even more saturation and vibrancy. See here, I was really playful with my palette and my colors. I just wanted to add in some vibrancy and color. Now that it's dry, I'm going to come in with my white gel pen and my white pencil and just come out with some of these highlights. I love doing this at the end. And then I can also come in then with my pens over top of the drawing. I lost some of those marks, so I want to bring those out over top of the painting. So this was a very quick way to connect to architecture. It was a very quick sketch, and I want you to realize that it doesn't always take a lot of time. You can take 10 minutes and put a timer on and then stop when you're at the 10-minute time frame. Just to keep the movement and fluidity and to keep you feeling a lot lighter and not so nervous about some of these quick sketches. It's a great way to practice and connect to various places in the world. So if there's a place that you've been dreaming about, connect to that place and work in your art journal and practice. Practice is so key to building your own style and your own expression in your artwork. So once again, I am so grateful that you have joined me today in my Artist Travel Day series. I will be releasing these as of now on Fridays through my newsletter is the best way to stay in touch. Thank you so much.